My son tells everyone he sends me $6,000 every month. He says it proudly. At family dinners. At work parties. Even on social media. My mom doesn't have to worry about a thing, he likes to say. I take care of her. People always smile when they hear that. Some even call him a wonderful son. And I suppose in some ways he is. But if you walked into my house right now, you probably wouldn't believe a word of it. My kitchen table is old. The wood is scratched from 40 years of use. The refrigerator hums like it's about to give up at any moment. And the sweater I'm wearing today has a small hole near the sleeve that I've stitched 3 times already. Most people would look at me and think I'm barely getting by. Sometimes, that's exactly what I want them to think. My name is Margaret Ellis, and I'm 72 years old. I live in the same little house my late husband and I bought back in 1984. Back then the neighborhood was quiet, the trees were smaller, and our son Daniel used to ride his bike up and down this street until the sun went down. Those were good days. Daniel grew up to be successful, very successful. He owns a consulting company now and lives in a beautiful house about 40 minutes away. And yes, every month he really does send me $6,000. Like clockwork. The money arrives on the first of every month with a short message. Love you, Mom. I never reply. Not because I'm ungrateful, but because the truth is, Daniel has no idea what actually happens to that money. And if he ever finds out, it might change everything. You see, Daniel believes he's taking care of me. But the truth is, I've been protecting him all along. Unfortunately, there's one person who never believed my quiet little life was real. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa. Vanessa has expensive taste, sharp eyes, and a habit of noticing things other people miss. For months, she kept asking Daniel the same question. If you send your mom $6,000 every month, she said one night, why does she still dress like she shops at thrift stores? Daniel always laughed it off. My mom's just old-fashioned, he said. But Vanessa wasn't laughing. And one afternoon, she decided to see the truth for herself. That was the day everything started to fall apart. Because when my son finally saw the clothes I was wearing, his wife did something desperate. Vanessa had always been the kind of woman who noticed details. Not small details like the color of flowers in a garden or the way sunlight hits a window. No, Vanessa noticed money. Designer handbags. Luxury cars. The price of someone's watch. The brand of someone's shoes. She could walk into a room and quietly calculate how much everyone there was worth. So the idea that Daniel was sending me $6,000 every month while I continued to live like a retired schoolteacher from the 1980s bothered her. A lot. At first, she kept her suspicions to herself. But one evening during dinner at their house, she finally said it out loud. Daniel, she said, setting down her wine glass, don't you think it's strange? Daniel looked up from his phone. Strange how? Vanessa leaned back in her chair. You send your mom $6,000 every month, she said slowly. But every time we visit, she's wearing the same old sweater. Daniel laughed. My mom's always been like that, he said. She hates wasting money. Vanessa didn't laugh. I'm serious, she continued. Have you ever asked what she does with it? Daniel shrugged. No. Why would I? Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. Because $6,000 a month is $72,000 a year, she said. Daniel blinked. For a moment, he actually did the math in his head. Vanessa continued. And you've been sending it for 3 years. Daniel shifted in his seat. Okay, so, that's over $200,000, she said quietly. The number hung in the air. Daniel frowned slightly. I trust my mom, he said. Vanessa smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. Of course you do, she said softly. Then she added the sentence that changed everything. But don't you want to know where your money is going? Daniel didn't answer right away. For the first time since he started sending those monthly transfers, doubt crept quietly into his mind. And once doubt enters a family, it rarely leaves peacefully. 2 days later, Daniel called me. Hey Mom, he said. Vanessa and I were thinking about coming by this weekend. I was standing in my kitchen when he said it, washing a coffee mug. That would be nice, I replied. He hesitated. Saturday afternoon, okay? Of course. When the call ended, I stood there for a moment, staring out the small window above my sink. I knew exactly why they were coming. Vanessa had always been curious. And curiosity, when mixed with greed, can become something much more dangerous. Saturday arrived colder than expected. I wore my usual gray sweater, the one with the small stitched hole near the sleeve. At around 2 o'clock, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Daniel step out first. Behind him, Vanessa climbed out of the passenger seat wearing a long cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She looked around the yard slowly, taking everything in. The peeling paint on the porch railing, the old garden chairs, the faded mailbox. Her eyes were calculating. Daniel knocked on the door. When I opened it, his face lit up the way it always had when he was a boy. "Hi, Mom." I hugged him. "Hi, sweetheart." Vanessa stepped forward and gave me a quick air kiss beside my cheek. "Margaret," she said politely. She has never called me Mom. Not once. Daniel walked into the living room and looked around. The furniture hadn't changed in years. Same sofa, same lamp, same old rug my husband and I bought decades ago. But it was when he turned back toward me that his expression suddenly changed. His eyes dropped to my sweater, the stitched sleeve, the worn fabric. For a moment, he just stared. "Mom," he said slowly, "you're still wearing that." I smiled. "It's comfortable." But Vanessa had already noticed something else, something far more interesting. And the moment she saw it, everything changed. Vanessa stepped into my living room slowly, her eyes moving across everything like she was inspecting a property she might buy. The sofa, the old curtains, the small bookshelf near the wall. None of it impressed her. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed uncomfortable. "Mom, you really shouldn't be living like this," he said, glancing around. "If something needs fixing, you should tell me." "I'm doing just fine," I replied calmly. Vanessa said nothing. She simply smiled that quiet, polite smile of hers while continuing to look around. Then her attention shifted toward the small wooden cabinet beside the window. Most people would never notice it. It's just an old cabinet with a few drawers, the kind you might find in a thrift store. But Vanessa noticed. Of course she did. She walked over to it slowly and ran a finger across the surface. "No dust," she said softly. I didn't answer. Daniel frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Vanessa opened the top drawer. Inside were envelopes, neatly stacked, dozens of them, each one labeled with a date. Daniel stepped closer. "What's that?" he asked. Vanessa pulled one envelope out and opened it. Inside was a bank receipt. She stared at it for a moment. Then she pulled out another. And another. Her expression changed instantly. "Daniel," she said quietly. He leaned closer. "What?" Vanessa held up the receipt. "This is a deposit." Daniel blinked. "Okay," she handed it to him. His eyes moved across the numbers. Then he froze. $6,000. Deposited. The first of the month. Every month. He grabbed another receipt. Same amount. Same date. Month after month. Year after year. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he slowly looked at me. "Mom," he said carefully. "You've been saving the money?" I nodded. "Every penny." Daniel looked confused. "But why?" Vanessa suddenly spoke. Her voice sharper now. "How much is there?" Daniel turned toward her. "Vanessa," but she was already counting. She flipped through the receipts quickly. January, February, March, year after year. Her breathing became slightly faster. "Daniel," she whispered. He looked at the final receipt. Then he did the math. 3 years. $6,000 a month. $216,000. Daniel leaned back slightly. "Mom, that's a lot of money." "Yes," I said quietly. Vanessa slowly turned toward me. Her eyes were no longer curious. They were hungry. "And where exactly?" she asked carefully. "Is that money now?" The room grew very quiet. Daniel looked at me again. "Mom, do you have it in a savings account?" I folded my hands together calmly. "Yes." Vanessa's lips tightened slightly. "And whose name is on that account?" she asked. I met her gaze. "Mine." That was the moment everything changed. Because Vanessa didn't see a quiet old woman anymore. She saw something else entirely. $200,000. And in her mind, that money already belonged to her. Daniel still looked confused. But Vanessa? Vanessa had already started planning something desperate. For a moment, nobody spoke. Daniel was still holding the receipt in his hand, staring at the number as if it might suddenly change. $200,000. Maybe more. Vanessa, however, recovered much faster. Much faster. "Well," she said lightly, smoothing the sleeve of her coat. "That's wonderful news." Daniel looked at her. "Wonderful." She smiled sweetly. "Of course," she said. "It means Mom has been financially responsible. That's a good thing." Her tone sounded warm, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. Vanessa walked slowly toward the kitchen table and sat down, crossing her legs neatly. So, she continued casually, what's the plan for the money? Daniel looked confused again. What do you mean? Vanessa leaned forward slightly. Well, Daniel, she said, that money came from you. He frowned. Yeah, but I gave it to Mom. Vanessa tilted her head. Sure, she said, but if she hasn't needed it, maybe it could be used more wisely. Daniel didn't respond. Vanessa continued. You know the new house we were looking at? She said gently. Daniel stiffened. Vanessa, I'm just saying, she went on quickly. A down payment like that could really help our family. Our family. She said the words carefully. Daniel looked from her to me. His face was filled with uncertainty. Mom, I didn't send you that money expecting it back, he said quietly. Vanessa turned toward him immediately. Nobody said anything about expecting it back, she said smoothly. Then she looked at me. But maybe Margaret would want to help her own son. The room went silent. I studied her face for a moment. Vanessa had always been clever. But today, she was trying very hard to sound patient. Very reasonable. Almost generous. Vanessa, Daniel said slowly. This isn't really our money anymore. Her smile tightened slightly. Daniel, be realistic. She gestured toward the cabinet full of receipts. That's $200,000 just sitting in a bank account. Her voice lowered. While we're still paying a mortgage. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Vanessa, stop. But she wasn't finished. In fact, she was just getting started. Margaret, she said, turning toward me again. Surely you don't need that much money. Her tone was still polite, but the mask was starting to slip. You live alone, she continued. You barely spend anything. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa, but she ignored him. Think about it, she said. That money could go towards something meaningful. Her eyes locked onto mine. Like helping your son build a better future. I leaned back slightly in my chair. For the first time since they arrived, I allowed myself to smile. A small smile. Because Vanessa thought she understood the situation. She thought she had discovered a hidden fortune. She thought she could simply talk me into handing it over. What she didn't realize was that the money in that account was never meant for her. Or Daniel. Or anyone she could control. And when she understood the truth, Vanessa would do something even more desperate than asking. Much more desperate. Hashtag part 5. The truth. Vanessa never expected. Vanessa's smile slowly faded when she realized I wasn't answering her. Instead, I stood up from the table and walked toward the same cabinet she had opened earlier. Daniel watched me carefully. Mom, he said. I pulled out one last envelope from the bottom drawer. This one was different. Thicker. Older. I placed it gently on the table between us. Vanessa leaned forward immediately. What's that? She asked. I slid the envelope toward Daniel. Open it, I said. He hesitated for a moment, then carefully pulled out the papers inside. The first page made his eyebrows pull together. Then his eyes widened. Mom, what is this? Vanessa stood up and moved beside him, trying to read the document. It only took her 3 seconds to understand. 3 seconds before the color drained from her face. It wasn't a bank statement. It was a trust document. Daniel looked at me again. A trust fund, he asked. I nodded. Yes. He flipped through the pages slowly. Every deposit. Every receipt. Every transfer. All recorded. All official. Vanessa spoke first. Her voice was tight. How much is in it? Daniel did the final calculation. Then he whispered the number. 216,000 and counting. Vanessa's eyes lit up again. But that's perfect, she said quickly. Daniel, this could help with the new house. No, I said calmly. The single word stopped her. Vanessa looked at me sharply. What do you mean no? I folded my hands together on the table. That money was never meant for you, I said. Daniel frowned. Mom, then who is it for? I smiled gently. For your daughter. Daniel blinked. My daughter? Yes. I nodded toward the photograph sitting on the shelf behind him. A picture of a little girl with messy brown hair and a gap in her smile. My granddaughter, Lily. For her college, I said quietly. For her future. Daniel looked back at the papers in his hands. Suddenly, the entire room felt different. Every dollar you sent me, I continued, went straight into that trust. I never spent a single penny. Daniel's eyes filled with emotion. Mom, why didn't you tell me? I shrugged slightly. Because generosity shouldn't come with expectations. Vanessa, however, was staring at the documents like they had personally betrayed her. But that money came from Daniel, she said sharply. Yes, I replied calmly. And Daniel chose to give it to me. Daniel slowly looked up, and Mom chose to give it to Lily. Vanessa's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. For the first time since she walked into my house, she had nothing to say. Daniel stood up and walked toward me. Then he wrapped his arms around me like he used to when he was a child. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said quietly. I patted his shoulder. "There's nothing to be sorry about." But as Daniel stepped back, Vanessa grabbed her purse abruptly. "We should go," she muttered. Daniel looked at her. "Vanessa." But she was already walking toward the door. Because the moment she realized the money would never belong to her, the house suddenly had nothing left for her to calculate. Daniel turned back to me. "Mom, you really saved all that for Lily?" I nodded. "Yes." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You know, everyone thinks I'm the one taking care of you." I smiled. "Let them think that." Daniel looked around the small living room again. The old furniture, the worn sweater, the quiet little house. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Mom, turns out you've been taking care of all of us." And for the first time that afternoon, Vanessa had absolutely nothing left to take.